Tonight, you will become a healer in the city of Avignon during the Great Plague of 1348. You will treat wealthy merchants and poor craftsmen. You will learn how medieval medicine worked and understand why this epidemic changed the course of history forever. Imagine a time when a physician healed with herbs and prayers, when a third of Europe's population disappeared in 3 years, when each day could be the last. But this was also a time when a new Europe was born, more free, more advanced, more modern. A time when the greatest tragedy accidentally sparked progress. 3 amazing facts. In one monastery in Avignon, 700 monks passed away from the epidemic in a short period. The plague freed peasants from feudal bondage and launched a technological revolution. From the ashes of the medieval world, a new Europe was slowly born, one that would create the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the scientific revolution. All of this became possible thanks to the social changes brought by the plague of 1348. Before we begin, an important point. Our story is an educational historical podcast about medieval medicine and the Black Death. All medical practices described reflect medieval beliefs and were not effective against plague bacteria. Modern medicine has since developed safe and effective treatments for infectious diseases. If what I create resonates with you, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Write in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always incredibly interesting to learn who joins these night journeys from different corners of the planet. Let's start our journey and imagine ourselves in the body of a healer who does everything possible to help everyone. This is a story not only about illness, but above all about people who continued to live, work, and hope despite everything. Close your eyes. Feel the scent of rosemary and lavender. Hear the distant sound of church bells. Imagine the narrow stone streets of a medieval city where every house keeps its own story. Welcome to Avignon, 1348. Welcome to the world of a medieval healer. You are a healer. You have devoted years to studying herbs and medical texts. You have read the works of Hippocrates and Galen. You know the theory of the 4 humours, but the plague challenges everything you know. And yet, you continue working. Each morning you take your bag of herbs, put on a cloth soaked with vinegar, and walk through the streets, from house to house, from patient to patient, because this is your duty, your calling. Morning light enters through the small window of your working room. The October air is cool and damp. Outside the window you hear the quiet sound of rain on stone roofs. This is your world. A small room on the first floor of a house in the craftsman's quarter of Avignon, where wooden cabinets with medicines stand along the walls. You rise from a simple wooden bed and approach your work table. Here passes most of your life, preparing medicines, studying medical texts, keeping records about patients. The morning begins the same way it has for many years, but since July of this year, each day is filled with special tension. Since July, the plague came to the city. Your apothecary is the result of many years of learning. You studied under an experienced healer for 5 years, learned the properties of plants, read ancient medical texts, observed the master's work. Now this is your craft, your way of serving people. On the shelves along the walls stand clay pots with dried herbs. Each one is labeled with careful handwriting. Sage to strengthen the body, chamomile for calming, valerian for sleep, rosemary to purify the air, mint for digestion, garlic, one of the main defenders against plague. Nearby are glass bottles with tinctures in wine and vinegar, oils and honey. You take a stone mortar and begin preparing medicine for today's visits. Dried sage leaves, a bit of valerian root, a pinch of ginger. The movements are familiar, precise. The scent fills the room. Fresh, spicy, soothing. This is the scent of your work. The medicine of your time is based on the theory of the four humours which Hippocrates created almost 2,000 years ago. It is believed that in the human body there are four main fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Health is the balance between them. Illness occurs when one of the fluids is in excess or deficient. Your task as a healer is to restore this balance. The plague, as learned physicians believe, is caused by an excess of black bile and poisoning of the air by miasmas, toxic vapors. These miasmas rise from the earth, gather in lowlands, spread on the wind. A person breathes poisoned air, the poison enters the body, and illness begins. You do not have a university education. That is the privilege of few. But you have studied the works of the great physicians of the past. On your shelf stand two precious books copied by hand. One is a collection of texts by Hippocrates and Galen. The other is a work by the Arab physician Avicenna about medicinal plants. These books cost dearly, but they are priceless for your work. Today you have several visits to make. You place the prepared medicines in a leather bag, clean linen bandages, a bottle of vinegar for cleaning your hands, a small bottle of rose water. Your instruments: a lancet for bloodletting, copper cups, needles, are wrapped in clean cloth. Everything is kept in order. Before leaving, you put on your protection. You tie a cloth soaked in a mixture of vinegar and rose water over your face. The sharp scent protects against bad air. You take a wooden staff. It helps with walking and allows you to keep distance when examining the sick. You throw on a cloak. It's drizzling outside. On your belt you hang a pouch with dried herbs. Additional protection. You step out onto the street. October in Avignon greets you with coolness and dampness. The city has changed since July. Before it was noisy and lively. Now it has become quieter, emptier, more watchful. Avignon is located in the south of France in the province of Provence. This is an important city, the residence of the Pope. High stone walls surround it, protecting from enemies. But against plague, walls are useless. Inside is a maze of narrow streets between stone houses. Some buildings are 3 stories tall, their upper floors almost touching above the street. In the center of the city rises the Papal Palace, a massive structure of light stone that has been under construction for many years. Here lives Pope Clement VI. Nearby is the great cathedral whose bells can be heard throughout the city. Before they steadily marked the hours of the day. Now they hardly stop announcing funerals. The city is divided into quarters. You live in the craftsman's quarter, where blacksmiths, carpenters, shoemakers, weavers, and potters settle. Before, you could constantly hear the sounds of work here, the strike of hammer, the creak of saw, the rhythm of the loom. Now many workshops are silent. There is a merchant's quarter, where traders live. They have large houses with warehouses. Most merchants left the city as soon as the plague began, taking shelter in country estates. Their houses stand with shutters closed. The market square is the heart of the city. Before, a busy market gathered here every day. Peasants brought vegetables, fruits, eggs, cheese. Fishermen sold fresh fish from the river. Butchers traded meat. Bakers sold bread. Now there is several times less goods. Peasants are afraid to come to the infected city. Prices have risen 3 or 4 times. You walk along familiar streets to your first patient. The cobblestones are uneven. Water has gathered between them after the night rain. On many doors are drawn red crosses by the mark of plague. This is a sign that in the house there are or were sick people. People avoid such houses. First visit to the family of a leather worker. His wife meets you at the door. She looks tired, but sighs with relief seeing you. You enter the house, remaining watchful. The husband lies in bed with high fever. You carefully examine him, using your staff for distance. You check his pulse through cloth. You examine the neck, armpits, groin, places where plague symptoms might appear. To your relief, the skin is clear. This is ordinary fever, not plague. You give the wife a tincture of willow bark to lower the fever. You leave a mixture of herbs for healing tea, chamomile, mint, thyme. You explain how to brew it, how much to give. You advise airing the room during windless hours when miasmas are not as active. The patient should drink plenty of fluids and eat light food. The wife thanks you and holds out several copper coins. This is fair payment. You live on income from your work, like any craftsman. Before leaving, you check the children. Both boys are healthy. The next visit is to a house with a red cross on the door. Here the weaver's wife is recovering from plague. A rare case. The fever began to fall after several days of intense illness. You wash a healing wound with vinegar, apply a fresh bandage with honey. You leave strengthening herbs. The weaver thanks you with tears, wife. His wife survived. By midday you complete your morning visits. You also visited a young mother with an infant. The child has colic, not plague. An infusion of fennel and dill will help. You return home with the weight of knowledge. Some will recover. For others, you can only ease their suffering and provide comfort. At home, work awaits you. You need to replenish medicine supplies, dry herbs, grind garlic into powder. Prepare new tinctures. Record observations about patients. Who is recovering? Who is worse? Which medicines help? In the evening you sit at the table by candlelight. You open a medical text, study the recommendations of other physicians about treating plague. You compare what is written with your own experience. You write down your own observations. These records are important. Perhaps someday they will help understand the illness better. This is your day during the plague. Visits to the sick, preparing medicines, study and records. The work of a healer does not stop. But in this service you find meaning and purpose. You remember stories of how the plague came to Europe. It was in autumn of 1347, almost a year ago. The story began far from here, on the shores of the Black Sea, in the Genoese trading colony of Kaffa in Crimea. The Genoese conducted active trade with the East. Their ships carried silks, spices and jewels from distant lands to Europe, earning enormous profits. Kaffa was an important trading port where merchants from different countries met. But in 1346 a Mongol army besieged the city. The siege lasted for months. The Genoese held out behind their strong walls. But among the Mongol warriors a strange illness began. High fever, weakness, rapid progression. Many warriors fell ill and could not continue the siege. The Mongol Khan understood that the siege was doomed and ordered a retreat. But before leaving, according to some reports, infected materials were sent into the city, whether intentionally or accidentally spreading the disease. The illness quickly appeared among the Genoese defenders as well. The Genoese realized the city was becoming dangerous and decided to flee. Several ships left Kaffa and headed home to Italy. On these ships sailed not only merchants and their goods, but also the disease. The ships docked in Messina in Sicily in October 1347. When the city authorities saw that many sailors were severely ill, they ordered the ships to leave immediately, but it was already too late. The illness had come ashore. From Sicily, the plague spread across Italy. By December, it reached Genoa, Pisa, and Venice. By January 1348, Florence and other cities of Tuscany. By spring, the south of France. By summer, Avignon, where you live. The plague moves faster than a person can travel. It spreads along trade routes, with merchant caravans, on ships. Cities that conduct active trade suffer first. Then villages. No place is safe. You have heard various theories about why the plague appeared. Some say it is God's punishment for human sins. Others blame the Jews, accusing them of poisoning wells, a terrible and unjust accusation that leads to persecution. Still others speak of an unfavorable alignment of planets that corrupted the air. The learned physicians you correspond with believe the primary cause is miasmas, poisoned air. In 1348, they say, there were earthquakes in distant lands that released toxic vapors from the earth. These vapors spread through the air, poisoning it. When a person breathes such air, the poison enters the body and causes illness. This theory is based on ancient knowledge. Hippocrates wrote that the location of a city, the quality of its water and air, determine the health of its inhabitants. Bad air, according to this teaching, is the source of epidemics. Therefore, the main defense is protecting yourself from bad air. Aromatic herbs, vinegar, smoke from burning fragrant woods. All of this, it is believed, purifies the air and protects from infection. You, like other healers, use these methods daily, but you notice something that doesn't fit the theory of miasmas. The plague clearly passes from person to person. If someone in a family falls ill, others soon follow. Healers and priests who care for the sick become ill more often than others. This suggests the illness is somehow transmitted through close contact. You share these observations with other healers. Some agree. Others insist that it's still about the poisoned air that concentrates around the sick. There is no definitive answer. Medical knowledge of your time cannot explain everything you observe. What is known for certain? The plague is terrifying in its speed and mortality. A person can be healthy in the morning and critically ill by evening. Most who fall ill pass away within 3 to 5 days. Only a small portion recover. You have seen both, those who died and those who miraculously survived. The plague has several forms you have noticed. The most common, when swellings appear on the body, usually in the neck, armpits, or groin. These are painful formations that grow quickly. Some patients develop high fever, severe weakness, confusion. In another form, there are no visible swellings, but the patient suffers from severe cough, chest pain, bloody sputum. This form is even more dangerous and progresses faster. There is a third form. When a patient quickly develops very high fever, confusion, and darkening of the skin in places. This is the fastest and most deadly form. You can do almost nothing for such patients except ease their suffering and pray. Your task as a healer is to help where possible. For those with the first form, when swellings appear, you try to help the body fight the illness. You apply compresses to the swellings with figs, onions, or special ointments that, as believed, draw out the poisoned matter. You perform bloodletting to remove excess black bile. You give strengthening herbs. Sometimes swellings open on their own, releasing fluid. When this happens and the patient survives the following days, chances of recovery increase. You carefully clean such wounds, wash them with vinegar, apply honey. It prevents decay. Some of your patients recover after this, but you are honest with yourself and with the families of the sick. Most often you cannot save them. Your medicines and procedures sometimes help, but more often they are powerless. What you can always do is ease suffering, give hope, and simply be present so that a person does not face death alone. Life in Avignon has changed beyond recognition since the plague arrived. The city that was full of energy and movement has become a place of fear and caution. But life continues. People adapt even to the most terrible circumstances. The main change is in how people interact with each other. Before, the market square was a place of meetings and conversations. Neighbors chatted, merchants bargained loudly, children ran between the stalls. Now people try to keep their distance. Conversations are brief. Many cover their faces with cloths soaked in vinegar. Trade has declined sharply. Many shops are closed. Their owners either fled, fell ill, or died. Those that remain open have raised prices significantly. A loaf of bread that cost 2 copper coins now costs 6. Meat and fish are even more expensive. The poor suffer most. They can barely afford food. The authorities try to maintain order. The city council has issued several decrees. Houses where plague patients live must be marked with a red cross. The sick must not go outside. Bodies of the deceased must be removed and buried quickly to prevent the spread of miasmas. Special carts go through the city every morning. Their drivers call out, and those who have deceased in their homes bring them out.
This is hard work and dangerous.
The drivers cover themselves completely, wear gloves, tie cloths soaked in vinegar over their faces. They receive high pay. Many refuse this work even for money. The cemeteries are overflowing. Before, each person was buried individually with prayers and a funeral service. Now there is no time or space for this. Priests conduct brief services for groups of the deceased. Wealthy citizens pay for individual graves for their relatives for proper funeral services. But even among the rich, many have lost several family members, and grief overwhelms the desire for ceremony. The Church plays a huge role during the plague. Pope Clement VI, who resides in Avignon, does not flee the city like many other nobles. He stays and continues his duties. He orders priests to care for the sick, perform last rites, bury the deceased. Many priests follow this call, although they know it is dangerous. The mortality among clergy is very high. Priests and monks who care for the sick fall ill and pass away in large numbers, but the new ones take their place. For many believers, this is an example of true Christian service, to risk one's life to help others. The Pope also supports healers like you. He blessed the work of physicians and healers, declaring it God's work. He encouraged people not to despair but to fight the plague with all available means. This moral support is important. It gives people hope. In the papal palace, which you can see from many points in the city, life also continues. The Pope holds services, receives pilgrims, conducts important church business. Around the palace they burn aromatic woods and herbs, protection from miasmas. The Pope himself, according to rumors, sits between 2 large fires that constantly burn in his chambers, purifying the air. Not all nobility shows such courage. Many wealthy citizens fled Avignon as soon as the plague appeared. They took shelter in their country estates, far from the city. Some took their servants and healers with them. Others left in such haste that they abandoned their property. Their empty houses now stand with shutters closed. Some have been looted. In times of chaos, there are always those who profit from others' misfortune. The city guard tries to prevent this, but they are few in number. Among ordinary people, reactions vary. Some fall into despair. They believe this is the end of the world, God's punishment from which there is no escape. Such people stop working, spend their last money on wine, sink into despondency. Others, on the contrary, become more devout. They pray more, attend church, give alms to the poor. They believe that piety will protect them from illness, or at least save their souls if death comes. Others, on the contrary, become more devout. They pray more, attend church, give alms to the poor. They believe that piety will protect them from illness, or at least save their souls if death comes. There are also those who continue to live as before, as much as possible. They work, care for their families, help neighbors. You belong to this group. Work helps not to fall into despair. Helping others gives life meaning even in the darkest times. The craftsman's quarter, where you live, has suffered less than others. Craftsmen are usually not wealthy enough to flee, but not so poor as to be helpless. They know how to work with their hands, accustomed to difficulties. Many continue their crafts, although orders have decreased. Your neighbor, a carpenter, makes simple coffins. Demand for them is great.
A weaver continues to work his loom. People still need cloth.
A blacksmith repairs tools and makes simple household items. Life goes on even if it has become harder and more dangerous. In the evenings, when you return home after visits to patients, you sometimes hear singing from neighboring houses. People sing psalms, old songs, lullabies for children. This is their way of maintaining spirit, reminding themselves that they are still alive, that there is still beauty in the world. You yourself find solace in work, preparing medicines, studying texts, keeping records. All of this structures the day, gives a sense of control over at least a small part of life. When everything around is chaos and death, such small islands of order are important. Sometimes you think about your own safety. You know that what you do is dangerous. Every visit to a plague patient puts you at risk of infection. But this is your calling. You became a healer to help people. Now, when help is needed more than ever, how can you refuse? You take all possible precautions. You wash your hands with vinegar after each patient. You change your outer clothing. You use aromatic herbs. You try not to touch patients directly using cloth and your staff. But you understand that complete protection is impossible. Every morning, waking up healthy, you feel gratitude. Every evening, returning home without symptoms of illness, you say a prayer of thanks. Life has become a series of small miracles. Each day without illness is a gift. Your main tools as a healer are herbs, traditional procedures based on ancient medical theory, and prayer. Each method has been passed down through generations, though their effectiveness varies greatly. Herbs are your primary medicine. You have studied their properties for many years. Some strengthen the body, others calm, still others are believed to purify. For plague, you use several main remedies. Garlic is considered one of the most powerful protections. It has a strong smell that it is believed drives away poisonous miasmas. You advise all patients to eat garlic daily.
You yourself eat it every morning.
Some people hang bunches of garlic in their homes for additional protection. Sage is used to strengthen the body and purify the air. You prepare infusions from it, give them to patients to drink. You also burn dried sage. The smoke purifies the air in the room, creating a sense of safety and ritual. Rosemary has similar properties. Its fresh, sharp scent is believed to protect from infection. You carry sprigs of rosemary with you, hold them to your nose when entering a house with sick people. Thyme helps with cough and breathing difficulties. For patients with the form of plague that affects the lungs, you prepare thyme infusions. They ease coughing, help breathe easier, provide comfort. For fever, you use willow bark. It contains substances that lower body temperature. This is one of the few remedies that truly helps. You prepare a decoction from it, give it to patients several times a day. You have seen how fever decreases after taking it. For swellings that appear with plague, you prepare special ointments and compresses. One recipe includes ground figs, onions, and butter. This mixture is applied to the affected area. It is believed to draw out poisoned matter. Another recipe uses bread soaked in milk with added herbs. Do these remedies help? Sometimes the patient's condition improves after such treatment, but you are not sure whether this is because of the remedies or would have happened anyway. You continue to use them because sometimes they seem to help, and they provide comfort to patients and families. Bloodletting is another widespread practice in medieval medicine, though you have grown increasingly cautious about it. According to the theory of humours taught by Hippocrates and Galen, many illnesses are caused by an imbalance of bodily fluids. The procedure was believed to restore this balance by removing excess or corrupted fluids from the body. This ancient method has been practiced for centuries across Europe and is considered standard treatment for many conditions, from fevers to headaches to plague itself. Physicians perform it routinely, believing it purifies the body and gives it strength to fight disease. However, your own observations over these months of plague have made you question its effectiveness. You have noticed that patients who undergo this procedure often become weaker rather than stronger. Those who are already frail seem to tolerate it poorly and sometimes worsen afterward. You are not alone in these doubts. Other healers you speak with have noticed the same pattern. Quietly, carefully, some are beginning to question whether this traditional practice truly helps. But challenging ancient authority is difficult and even dangerous. Medical knowledge is sacred, passed down from the great masters. To question it feels like heresy. Still, you increasingly focus on gentler methods, nourishing broths, strengthening herbs, rest, and comfort. These seem to serve patients better than dramatic interventions that weaken them further. Another traditional practice involves cupping, heated glass or copper vessels placed on the skin. This is believed to draw harmful humours to the surface. The procedure leaves circular marks but is not invasive. Some patients report feeling relief, though you suspect this may be more psychological than physical. Prayer remains central to your practice. You are not a priest, but you know prayers. Before starting treatment, you say a prayer asking God for guidance and healing. You pray with patients if they wish. Many find great comfort in this spiritual support. You also advise patients to confess and receive communion from a priest. The Church teaches that spiritual health supports physical health. A person who has made peace with God faces illness with more courage and calm, and sometimes, you believe, this peace of mind helps the body fight disease. Beyond specific treatments, you counsel families on basic care that truly makes a difference, keeping the patient clean and comfortable, changing bed linens frequently, airing the room to bring in fresh air, giving plenty of fluids, water, herbal teas, diluted wine, feeding light but nourishing foods, broths, porridges, soft bread with honey. These simple measures of care and comfort often matter more than any medicine. A patient who feels loved and supported, who is kept clean and comfortable, who has hope, such a person has better chances of recovery. And even if they do not survive, they spend their final days with dignity. You keep careful records of all your observations, which herbs seem most helpful, which procedures appear beneficial and which seem to weaken patients, how different patients respond to different treatments. These notes are valuable. Perhaps someday they will help future healers understand illness better and treat more effectively. The work of a healer during plague is constant learning. Each day brings new cases, new observations, new questions. You try different approaches, compare results, adjust your methods based on what you see rather than only what ancient texts teach. This is how medical knowledge slowly advances through careful observation, honest recording of results, and willingness to question even long-held beliefs when evidence suggests they may be wrong. The plague has not only taken lives, it has profoundly changed the way people think about life itself. Before, society seemed unshakable, with its rigid structure of nobles, clergy, merchants, and peasants. Everyone knew their place. Now death has shown that it makes no distinction between a wealthy bishop and a poor craftsman. This realization has sown the seeds of change in people's minds. You notice it in conversations on the rare occasions when people gather. They speak differently about wealth. What is the use of gold and silks if they cannot protect you from illness? A bag of flour or a friendly neighbor who brings you water is now worth more than a chest of silver. The value of simple, tangible things, food, shelter, health, human connection, has become clearer than ever before. The relationship with the church is also changing. Many find solace in faith, and the self-sacrifice of priests who care for the sick inspires deep respect. But others begin to question. If the plague is God's punishment, why does it strike pious monks and innocent children? Why do prayers not always help? These are dangerous questions, rarely spoken aloud, but they linger in people's minds. You see a shift from blind faith to a more personal, internal search for meaning. Work and labor are being re-evaluated. With so many workers gone, those who remain, craftsmen, peasants, laborers, are suddenly more valuable. Landowners who once had dozens of peasants tied to their land now find themselves with no one to harvest their crops. They are forced to offer better conditions, higher wages, and even freedom to attract workers. You hear stories from the countryside of peasants demanding and receiving wages for their labor, or leaving their old masters to find better opportunities. The old system of feudal obligations is cracking under the strain of the plague. You realize you are witnessing the beginning of a great social transformation. A new Europe is being born, one where a person's worth is determined not just by their birth, but by their skills and labor. Family structures are also shifting. In many families, traditional heads of households, fathers, husbands, have been lost. Women are stepping into new roles, managing workshops, trading goods, making decisions for their families. You see women like Marguerite, the wool merchant's wife who survived, now running her husband's business with a confidence she never knew she possessed. The plague, in its cruelty, has inadvertently created opportunities for women to show their strength and capability. Even inheritance laws are being challenged. With entire families disappearing, questions of who inherits their property arise. Distant relatives, apprentices, even neighbors lay claim to abandoned houses and workshops. City councils and church courts are overwhelmed with disputes. New legal precedents are being set every day, changing the way property is passed down through generations. You, as a healer, also feel your status changing. Before the plague, university-trained physicians looked down on healers like you, who relied on herbs and practical experience. Now, with many learned physicians either dead or fled, people turn to you for help. They see that your simple remedies and devoted care often bring more comfort and sometimes better results than the complex theories of the academics. Your knowledge, once considered folk medicine, is gaining new respect. This time of great tragedy is also a time of great introspection. You spend your evenings not only studying medical texts, but also thinking about the nature of life, death, and society. You see that even the most terrible events can have unforeseen consequences, leading to positive changes in the long run. The plague has stripped away the non-essential, revealing what truly matters. It has shown the fragility of life, but also the resilience of the human spirit. It has shaken the foundations of the old world, making way for something new. You write these thoughts in your journal alongside your medical observations. You feel it is important to document not just the physical symptoms of the plague, but also its impact on the human soul and society. Perhaps someday people will read your words and understand that even in the darkest of times, humanity finds ways to adapt, to learn, and to hope for a better future. This is the ultimate lesson the plague has taught you, not as a healer, but as a human being. The plague did more than just devastate cities. It shattered the unshakable confidence in ancient knowledge. For centuries, the teachings of Galen and Hippocrates were considered absolute truth. But now, you and other thoughtful healers cannot ignore the fact that these venerable theories often fail in the face of this new, terrifying illness. This failure gives birth to a powerful and dangerous new force, doubt. You find yourself in quiet conversations with other practitioners, an old apothecary, a learned monk from the papal library, even a barber surgeon who has seen more of the plague's reality than any university professor. In these hushed talks held away from judging ears, you share observations that contradict the old books. You discuss how the plague seems to spread directly from person to person, regardless of the quality of the air. You note that it does not seem to follow the predictable patterns of humoral imbalance. You whisper about the ineffectiveness of widely practiced treatments, observing that simple care and nourishment often yield better results than complex and harsh procedures. This is the very beginning of a new way of thinking. It is a shift from accepting authority without question to relying on direct observation, what you can see with your own eyes. You have started to keep two sets of notes. One contains traditional diagnoses based on the four humours for the sake of custom. The other, your private journal, is filled with raw data. Who fell ill, what their true symptoms were, who they had contact with, what was done, and what the outcome was. This collection of empirical evidence feels more valuable than any ancient text. This spirit of inquiry is quietly spreading. In monasteries, monks are not just copying old texts, but adding their own observations in the margins. Travelling merchants bring back not only goods, but also stories of how the plague is being treated in other lands, what remedies are being tried in Florence, or what public health measures are being enacted in Venice. Knowledge is beginning to flow more freely, driven by a desperate collective need for answers. You hear of radical ideas. A physician in Italy suggests that tiny, invisible living things might be the cause of the illness, an idea so outlandish that most dismiss it as fantasy. Yet it plants a seed. It shows that people are beginning to look for explanations beyond miasmas and planetary alignments. This period of immense suffering is inadvertently becoming a crucible for scientific thought. The sheer scale of the tragedy forces a re-evaluation of everything. It fosters a new generation of thinkers who are more skeptical, more practical, and more reliant on evidence. You are a part of this quiet revolution. Your careful notes, your questioning of old methods, your focus on what actually works. These are the building blocks of a future medicine you will never see. You don't think of yourself as a revolutionary. You are simply a healer trying to save lives. But in doing so, you are helping to lay the groundwork for a world that will one day conquer the very diseases that now seem invincible. Your small apothecary, filled with the scent of herbs and the light of a single candle, has become a laboratory. Your patients are your teachers, and your doubts are the most powerful tool you possess. They are what separate you from the healers of the past and connect you to the scientists of the future. As the first year of the plague draws to a close, you begin to notice a change that has nothing to do with medicine or society, but with the land itself. The world outside Avignon's walls is transforming. Fields that for generations were meticulously ploughed and planted with wheat, barley, and grapes now lie fallow. With so many farmers and labourers gone, there is no one left to work them. Nature, ever patient, begins its slow reclamation. In the untended vineyards, wild vines choke the cultivated ones. In the fields, tough weeds and wildflowers push through the soil, followed by thorny shrubs and the first saplings of birch and oak. The neat patchwork of agricultural land that once surrounded the city is starting to fray at the edges, becoming wilder and less tamed. This change brings a startling shift in the animal population. With fewer humans to hunt them and vast new areas of overgrown land to hide in, wild animals grow bolder. You hear reports from travelers of wolf packs growing larger and more audacious, their howls echoing closer to the city at night. Herds of deer and wild boar, once confined to distant forests, now venture into abandoned orchards to feast on fallen fruit. The balance between man and nature, held for centuries, has been abruptly altered. Even the air feels different. With a significant portion of the city's population gone, there are fewer chimneys sending smoke into the sky. On calm winter mornings, the air seems crisper and cleaner than you can ever remember. The sky appears a deeper shade of blue. It is a strange and unsettling paradox. As human civilization has been dealt a devastating blow, the natural world seems to breathe a sigh of relief. As a healer who has always paid close attention to the environment, to the seasons, the plants, the quality of the air and water, you find these changes both fascinating and humbling. It is a powerful reminder that humanity is just one part of a much larger natural order. While you and your fellow citizens have been locked in a desperate struggle for survival, the world of trees, plants, and animals has continued its own cycles, seizing the opportunity created by human tragedy. You do not have the knowledge to understand the long-term consequences of this. You cannot know that this vast reforestation across Europe might subtly cool the climate for a time, or that the genetic diversity of certain plants will flourish without human intervention. But you can see the immediate effects. You see a wilder, greener, and more untamed world emerging from the ruins of the old one. It is a world that is indifferent to human suffering, yet in its resilience it offers a strange kind of hope, a sign that life, in some form, always endures. As autumn deepens into winter, a fragile sense of change settles over Avignon. The air grows cold and crisp, and with the frost, the plague seems to loosen its grip. There are fewer new cases each day. The constant tolling of funeral bells becomes less frequent, and the silence that follows is both a relief and a heavy reminder of all who have been lost. You walk through streets that are scarred, but no longer defeated. You see more people venturing out. A blacksmith's hammer rings with renewed purpose. A baker pulls fresh loaves from his oven, the warm scent a promise of normalcy. Life, resilient and persistent, is slowly reclaiming the city. The cost has been immense. In some quarters, every second house is empty. You know families that have vanished entirely, leaving behind only memories and abandoned belongings. The city's population has been halved, but those who remain are bound by a shared experience that has changed them forever. They are survivors. You continue your work, though it has changed. Now you mostly treat the after-effects of the plague, lingering weakness, grief, and the common ailments of winter. You help a young widow manage her late husband's workshop, offering advice not as a healer, but as a friend. You teach your apprentice, Pierre, not just about herbs, but about compassion, and the importance of listening to patients. You are passing on the lessons this terrible year has taught you. One evening, sitting by the fire in your quiet apothecary, you look through the journal you have kept. Page after page is filled with observations, recipes, and the names of the sick, some marked with a small cross, others with a sign of recovery. This book is more than a medical record. It is a testament to a city's ordeal. You think about the future. The world will not be the same. The old certainties are gone.
Power has shifted.
The value of a person's life and labor has been redefined. People have seen the highest levels of courage and the deepest despair. They have learned that community and simple kindness are the most valuable currencies in times of crisis. From the ashes of 1348, a new era will be born. It will be an era of greater freedom for the common person, of new art that reflects the fragility of life, of new science that questions old authorities. The Renaissance is still decades away, but you feel its first stirrings in the quiet, determined spirit of the survivors. Your journey as a healer in the time of the Black Death is coming to an end. But the story of humanity continues. You have been a witness to one of its darkest chapters, but also to its enduring strength. You have learned that even in the face of unimaginable loss, people continue to love, to work, to build, and to hope. As you close your journal, you feel not despair, but a quiet sense of purpose. You have done what you could. You have served your community, and you have borne witness to the unbreakable resilience of the human spirit. Now open your eyes. Return from the stone streets of medieval Avignon to your own time. The world has changed immensely since 1348, yet the lessons of that time remain. Courage, compassion, and hope are as vital today as they were then. Thank you for sharing this journey through history. By the spring of 1349, nearly 2 years after the plague first reached the shores of Europe, the horrifying wave that had swept across the continent began to recede. In Avignon, as in other cities, this was not a sudden end, but a gradual, faltering decline. The disease did not simply vanish. Rather, it seemed to burn itself out, having exhausted the supply of vulnerable hosts. You, like other observers across Europe, do not understand the scientific reasons for this reprieve. You do not know about herd immunity or the complex life cycle of the plague bacterium and its flea vector. From your perspective, it seems that the cold winter months played a role, as the number of new cases had dropped significantly. Some credit the endless prayers, believing God's wrath has finally been appeased. Others, more pragmatically, note that there are simply fewer people left to fall ill. The city of Avignon in 1349 is a ghost of its former self. The official death toll is staggering, with some chroniclers estimating that half the population, or even more, has perished. The silence in once bustling quarters is profound. Yet, with the retreat of the plague, a new, cautious energy begins to emerge. The immediate aftermath is a period of legal and administrative chaos. Courts are overwhelmed with inheritance disputes. Thousands of properties are ownerless, and the city council must decide how to reassign them. Guilds, having lost most of their masters and apprentices, struggle to rebuild. They are forced to lower their standards for entry, allowing less experienced craftsmen to become masters overnight, simply to keep essential trades alive. A strange, almost feverish mood grips some of the survivors. Having stared death in the face and lived, some people embrace a philosophy of living for the moment. Chroniclers of the time write about a surprising increase in marriages, lavish feasts, and a general disregard for old social norms. It is as if, having survived the apocalypse, people felt liberated from the constraints of the old world. However, you also know that the plague has not truly gone away. It has retreated, but it now lingers, becoming an endemic disease that will return in smaller, localized outbreaks for centuries to come. The generation of survivors will live with the constant, low-level fear of its return. This fear will drive the development of new public health measures, such as the formalization of quarantine, which was first pioneered in the port city of Ragusa. The quarantino, or 40-day isolation period for arriving ships and crews, would become a standard practice in Mediterranean trade. The Black Death of 1347-1351 is over, but its shadow will loom over Europe for a long time. It has reshaped the continent's demography, economy, and psychology. You as a healer understand this better than most. You have not defeated the plague, but you have survived it. And in the quiet that follows, the monumental task of rebuilding, not just the city, but a whole new world, begins. As autumn deepens into winter, a fragile sense of change settles over Avignon. The air grows cold and crisp, and with the frost, the plague seems to loosen its grip. There are fewer new cases each day. The constant tolling of funeral bells becomes less frequent, and the silence that follows is both a relief and a heavy reminder of all who have been lost. You walk through streets that are scarred, but no longer defeated. You see more people venturing out. A blacksmith's hammer rings with renewed purpose. A baker pulls fresh loaves from his oven, the warm scent a promise of normalcy. Life, resilient and persistent, is slowly reclaiming the city. The cost has been immense. In some quarters, every second house is empty. You know families that have vanished entirely, leaving behind only memories and abandoned belongings. The city's population has been halved, but those who remain are bound by a shared experience that has changed them forever. They are survivors. You continue your work, though it has changed. Now you mostly treat the after-effects of the plague, lingering weakness, grief, and the common ailments of winter. You help a young widow manage her late husband's workshop, offering advice not as a healer, but as a friend. You teach your apprentice, Pierre, not just about herbs, but about compassion and the importance of listening to patients. You are passing on the lessons this terrible year has taught you. One evening, sitting by the fire in your quiet apothecary, you look through the journal you have kept. Page after page is filled with observations, recipes, and the names of the sick, some marked with a small cross, others with a sign of recovery. This book is more than a medical record. It is a testament to a city's ordeal. You think about the future. The world will not be the same. The old certainties are gone.
Power has shifted.
The value of a person's life and labor has been redefined. People have seen the highest levels of courage and the deepest despair. They have learned that community and simple kindness are the most valuable currencies in times of crisis. From the ashes of 1348, a new era will be born. It will be an era of greater freedom for the common person, of new art that reflects the fragility of life, of new science that questions old authorities. The Renaissance is still decades away, but you feel its first stirrings in the quiet, determined spirit of the survivors. Your journey as a healer in the time of the Black Death is coming to an end. But the story of humanity continues. You have been a witness to one of its darkest chapters, but also to its enduring strength. You have learned that even in the face of unimaginable loss, people continue to love, to work, to build, and to hope. As you close your journal, you feel not despair, but a quiet sense of purpose. You have done what you could. You have served your community, and you have borne witness to the unbreakable resilience of the human spirit. Now open your eyes. Return from the stone streets of medieval Avignon to your own time. The world has changed immensely since 1348, yet the lessons of that time remain. Courage, compassion, and hope are as vital today as they were then. Thank you for sharing this journey through history.